Happy Friday night. Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I'm Deanna. It is great to see you this Friday. I am all blinged out for Christmas. I mean, we're not there yet. We don't all celebrate Christmas. I know all of this, but I felt that this was the day to wear the bib with all of the glittery pins. I'm just saying it's another one of our great cozy cocktail nights. We have got so much to cover tonight. I'm super excited. I'm excited to see who's here. I'm excited to say hello. I'm hoping that the space heater that's sitting next to me is not going to get me to, what's that song? Chestnuts roasting by the open fire, something about, we always change the words to perspire. Do you know the one I mean? Do you know the lyric I mean? Sorry. Let me put on my reading glasses and see what buddies are logged on for cocktail night, Friday night. You made it. You made it. We are right at the end of the month, which is so scary for me because I'm still not done with the Christmas shopping and all that. It's all getting very real, isn't it? And I am in my comfy spot again. I have to apologize because there is a beautiful mantle 2 rooms over that is all blinged out for Christmas. And I've stood in front of it a few times, but I'm telling you, my favorite place is right here on this cozy couch with the little pencil tree behind me. It feels very festive in here. You will see the mantle again, I promise. That is my proper set. This is less professional but more cozy, right? Oh, Gayla, good to see you. Happy cocktail night. Kirsten, happy cocktail night. Great to see you. You are in snowy Vermont. I saw the picture. You did get some snow, and it was super lovely and idyllic, and it didn't look overwhelming either. Perfect. Linda B., great to see you in New Jersey. Cheers, my dears. I'm anxious to see what everybody's got. Today, I took a Kraken. I took a Kraken from the booze store. It's black spiced rum punch. And it tastes like Kool-Aid. That's probably not a good thing to say, is it? Mm-hmm. As soon as I say it, that giant jug of Kool-Aid is going to come busting through the wall, right, and give us an open floor plan, whether we want it or not. Kaz, great to see you in Wisconsin. I've been missing you. Great to see you. Ryan in Texas, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Are you any better? You're doing Polaroid transfers and having red wine to keep the chill away. Polaroid transfers. Is this a rug project, or are you transferring photography onto fabric to do some kind of quilting or collage or something like that? Interesting. How many of you have snow? We don't. I think all of ours is gone because it's been raining for 2 days. But I'm also curious to know in the different regions who does have snow, who has big snow, who has bad snow, who has charming snow, all the different categories of snow that there might be out there. Linda H., happy cocktail night in Massachusetts. Robin, happy cocktail night in snowy Wisconsin. We know that Robin has snow, and that means Kaz has snow too. Andrea, good to see you. Going to try and stay awake. Oh, hang in for as long as you can. You know we'll be here burning the midnight oil for you. And it'll be up tomorrow, right? Oh, you have something similar to me. Drink tonight a special spiced vodka. Frost outside. Oh, isn't that nice? You know what we did the other day when it snowed? We didn't have any ice made, like in the refrigerator, because we've been having that many parties. You know what's bothering me is that white gap. I'm going to come over here. There we go. I'm going to use my head to fill the gap. There we go. We had no snow, no ice set in the, in trays set in the freezer. We went outside when it was snowy and scooped a little bit of ice into bowls. It was super nice. It was extra festive somehow that way. Not if it were like June, but like at the beginning of December, it was super festive. Sharon, great to see you in Vancouver, Canada. Great to see you, Cats Gallery. Cheers in Southern California. Sunny Southern California. Oh, dear. Candace, great to see you. Good evening. I'm just catching up on the thread with you all. I like to see what you're chatting to each other. Lori, great to see you. Good to see you too. And Lisa, good to see you. Happy Friday night. Beverly, happy Friday night. You're doing some weaving while you're listening. I know you do everything. You do everything. I love to see you doing your weaving. Carol, it's a winter wonderland there. Oh, I bet. Dave in Toronto, greetings. Uh-oh, why won't I scroll down? Come on. All right. Dutch baby pancake in the oven. Hard cider to celebrate. Fantastic. Karen, great to see you. Your Rhea rug looks absolutely outrageous. It's my favorite one I've seen so far. I absolutely love it. It is perfection. Are you going to, did you send that to me for gallery night, or I can pull it right off the Facebook group too? I'd like to show that. Next Friday is gallery night. So tonight we're doing a cozy night where it's like a little bit of a history-driven night. We're looking at some designs. I have a lot of Christmas patterns in the ribbon candy hooking store, and since it is my brand and my business, I'm trying to be a little bit smarter about showing what I have. There's so much, and it's not set up in the best way, right? Because you know me, right? So I want to make sure that you see some of the patterns that are out there that are new this year, that are new now, because I have been having a bit of an inspiration drought that has not surprisingly paralleled like massive depression episode. But finally, I'm getting some new patterns out, and there are some great Christmas patterns out. So tonight we are talking about symbolism in art, in popular culture, and why we see, well, we're not going to cover everything tonight because it's such a vast subject, but we did this with the Halloween month. We tapped into different motifs and things that we associate with a specific time of year, a specific holiday. I'm only scratching the surface tonight, and then we'll definitely come to Hanukkah and Kwanzaa a little bit later, because I think the day that Hanukkah ends, Kwanzaa begins. So we have more to do on this subject, but I'm just scratching the surface. Some things that we know we associate with the winter holidays, with the Christmas holiday, whether you celebrate or not. It's interesting trivia. If you are ever on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire or something like that, you're going to hear a lot of factoids tonight that will be wonderful to store and just interesting to know. So next time you see an image or you're working on a pattern that features a specific image or motif, you can say to yourself, I know how that came about. I know just how that came about. And then you have this giant feather in your cap, right, which is always fun. Oh, Teresa, good to see you. Cheers, my dears. Ryan says he's transferring Polaroid emulsion to paper. Feeling better. Great. I'm so happy to hear that. Sharon says, just got in from lunch at an Indian restaurant. Indian food is my absolute favorite. Thai is a close second, but Indian food is my absolute favorite. I am like an animal when I sit down at an Indian restaurant. I get so territorial. You would not, well, maybe you would recognize me, but it's like chicken tikka masala, onion bhajis, samosas. Everything's got to be just so. I need the red sauce, the green sauce, the brown sauce. I have to have my own portions for dipping because I'm like this. Papadums. I mean, I'm like an animal. I am truly a shameful guest when it comes to Indian restaurants. It is so good. Melanie, I love the rug that you posted, and I'm hoping to use it for gallery night next Friday in our Facebook group, which is called Rug Cooking and Punch Needle Club. You posted a beautiful patterned rug with like holly and berries, right? That was absolutely beautiful. I just saw it, and I just loved it. Stephanie, great to see you. Oh, Melanie, you're having a pumpkin spiced rum eggnog. Now, suddenly, my Kraken is looking super shabby. That sounds amazing and creamy and fantastic. And I have the attire on today, right, where it would be absolutely fine to put a few pumpkin eggnogs in here, right? This like moo, right? This like, here comes what was that B. Arthur show? And then was it Maud? Was it Maud? And then there's Maud, where she always wore these giant tent dresses, you know? Oh, man. Oh, good, Karen, you sent it to me. Great. Barbara, great to see you. Happy Friday night. Great to see you. Ryan, great to see you. Happy Friday. You're finishing the Raya tie-dye rug. Excellent. Excellent. Linda Ann, I owe you so many messages. Good to see you. Sending very much love. And let's see. Okay. There we go, Dave. Well, that'll be one of our days, because it'll be a few days that we're tearing around the alleyways. And what do you call the alleyways in Toronto? Are they called closes, like in Scotland? I feel like they're not called like lanes. Are they called lanes? I can't wait. This is the year. 2023 is the year. Unless something awful happens, knock on wood. I'm not even sure what's made of wood anymore. Maud. There we go. Thank you. And then there's Maud. Thank you, Melanie. I do too. I was trying to pin a few more right on before the show, and I was just bleeding. Nothing good was coming of it. The Golden Girls. Oh, well, it's great to see you all. I'm going to keep my eye on the thread there. It's great to see you all. Happy Friday night. Let me turn this a little bit. And, you know, before I get started, I do have a lot of content tonight, so I don't want to trip myself up too much. But I just want to say a couple of beautiful rugs came in the mail. There is so much going on right now, and I have so many announcements and things to tell you. Okay, well, let me tell you the most important one first. And I should have posted this one in our Facebook group. So you're the first people to hear this. This was a big announcement. Do you remember a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I did an episode on Pierre Sylvain, because I had gone to his art show at the Charter Oak Cultural Center in Hartford, which is the capital of Connecticut, and saw these beautiful rugs that he did, and also some quilts by Linda Martin. Do you remember that episode? Well, he called yesterday and he said, listen, I've been dying to do an all rug show, not mine, other people's, 25 to 30 rugs. And we normally have, because he's on the board of directors at the Charter Oak Cultural Center, and he said normally there's like a 2 to 3 year wait for a show, but there's something happened in March, like this coming March. And he said, do you think it would be possible to put together a rug show? And I said, I think it would be possible and wonderful, because the rugs that we would be putting up are probably rugs that people have already finished. So I said to him, what do you think about a theme? Because this is a proper gallery. Like, this is an art show. What I'm doing at the library is great with all of our Van Gogh rugs. That is going to be an awesome exhibit, and that is going to be seen by a lot of people. This is like a gallery show. This is a bit different. And he didn't really want a theme, but I was projecting forward to within the next 2 or 3 weeks, I will be giving, and I will announce this weekend, that the next Design Light class on Celtic illumination and the Book of Kells and designing like a Celtic illuminist until I have a better name, but also the show that we talked about, the class that we talked about, designing your story rug. So I said to him, why don't we make the theme of the show very loosely story rugs? And basically anything falls into that category, except maybe a basket of flowers, right? Everything falls into that category. So what I'm saying to you is, if you would like your work to be hung, and he's going to give me the exact dates, he said, in 2 or 3 days, because he's like wiggling it. But basically, I'm putting the word out and saying, do you have a piece that you would like in a gallery show, right? And if you have a Van Gogh, you can put another one in for this. 2 completely different shows, right? This, the one at the Cultural Center, right? The one I'm talking about now is going to be like 2 to 3 months later. So something to think about. If you think that you might be interested, please let me know. I want to be sure that I have 25 to 30, and I want to work with you all individually, probably in a series of Zoom calls individually, taking down text so I know what to put on the plaques. And then I think Pierre will probably be hanging the show, because that's kind of his bag. But I just want to coordinate it, and I want to put it out there to you. And if you're thinking, I think my work is okay, but I'm a beginner, I don't think it's good. It is good enough. It is good enough. If you have a rug that you made that is meaningful to you because it has some kind of story attached to it, then we want that rug for this show, right? I said to him, do you want like a certain level of, do you want like the really high-end artsy kinds of rugs? And he said, absolutely not. I want any rugs. I want people to see all different styles. So that's coming up, and I'm gonna post that in our Facebook group too, but I wanted to say it here first, because I know sometimes our tightest group of people, or at least the people who can tune in on Fridays, are here. And I want to put it out to you first, because it's not an enormous space. I think 30 would be feasibly the top of what we can do, but it will be wonderful, and it's a very high-end show, so it'll be hanging for probably a month or so. So if you have any questions, write me at ribboncandyhooking@gmail.com. If you are local to me, or you are in New England, this is something great, and maybe you could come and hang out with the rest of us that are local. See your piece in there, see people talking about your piece and how great it is, which they will be saying. And it'll just be another really fun night. We have 2 things on the calendar for 2023 already that are like high-end events that will bring new people and new faces to rug making. And that makes me very, very happy. After Pierre's show, that night I got a sale from someone that didn't even know what rug hooking was before. And she's been a customer ever since, right? She's ordered since then. So she's like going through stuff like crazy. This is what we want. So it's exciting. Being shown in a gallery would be such an honor. Ryan, get going. Tell me what you want me to hang. And if you have a large piece, Pierre said like 1 piece, what do you think of 1 piece per person? And I said, great. But maybe if you have small pieces, maybe it would be more like 2 or 4, like in a group. So we'll see. We'll talk about that individually, and I am going to open up some time so that if you have questions, I can Zoom with you and you can ask questions, or maybe we'll do a special Zoom call for people to ask questions like, this is what I have. Do you think this is right? Does this qualify as a story rug? If you have more than 2 sentences to write about why you made that piece and why it's special for you, then guess what? It is a story rug. So it's exciting. It's exciting because I often talk about the distinction between gallery rug makers and like crafting rug makers. And I certainly consider myself more of a crafter. I'm not like a fine high end maker. I'm an order filler as well. But aside from that, ever since my dumpster fire, which I have coming up later in this episode, ever since I drew that the other day, I feel like I don't feel like a gallery maker, but I do feel like I do have some things that I would like to get out, stories from our family and such. I'm so sorry about that. I'm going to bring my phone. Well, I'm so sorry. You know it's Teddy. You know it's my son Teddy, because who else would it be? I am so sorry. I'm going to trip on the table if I go to shut it off. Sorry. Okay. I am so sorry about that. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Anyway, that's exciting. So that's for you too. That's exciting for all of us. So you are absolutely invited to participate. Definitely ask questions. If you want to be in it, I am not going to close you. I would not want to close you out of it. If you want to be in it, I want to make sure that you are in it. So that's the word going out on that subject. Speaking of the Van Gogh rugs, right, because that is coming up. I think it's January 28th. I do the talk at the Hartford Library, which is a formidable library. Big statue of Mark Twain standing outside because he's also from Hartford. And that's going to be a great show in there too. A great, hopefully a great talk and a great show. And if you are local, I'll just remind you, I would love to have you at the talk demonstrating on your lap, whatever you do, hooking on a frame, not on a frame, floor frame, whatever. We'll make it happen before the talk starts because people will want to stroll around and see what this rug hooking thing is. Or if you're doing prati, or if you're doing punch, it doesn't matter. I will be talking about all forms of historic rug making and the history of rug making. And that will be followed by the Van Gogh show. And guess what? Nancy, you sent I've got 2 Van Gogh rugs that came in the last 48 hours and was very excited about that. Stephanie, I just know. And not only do I know it was Teddy because I'm like a crystal ball, but I know he was going to ask me something about where his vintage Pac-Man puppet is. I know it. I just know it. And or Mrs. Pac-Man, but one or the other. It's not something for 7 o'clock on a Friday night. Nancy, you sent a gorgeous rug. Wait a minute, I got the wrong one out. No, I got the right one. Hang on. Yes, hang on. Let me just make sure. Yep, Nancy. I hope the light is good enough for this, but I thought this was absolutely beautiful. I'm going to show it to you close up too. This is the Van Gogh chair that many of us are working on. Right, this is absolutely beautiful, and I see the sunflowers and the paintbrushes, right, the little wicker chair, his little studio chair. I love how this is done in kind of teals, right? It's different color. It's still the Van Gogh colors for sure, right? This is like definitely a teal, and this beautiful rusty floor. Isn't that absolutely gorgeous? Absolutely gorgeous. Van Gogh's chair and paint box tribute to Vincent Van Gogh, designed by Diana. I just copied the picture, but thank you so much. Additions by Nancy Klunder. The whole thing is by Nancy Klunder. Come on. That is just so beautiful. I cannot wait to see all of these together. Isn't it going to be such a thing? We're going to have to do a live thing. Nancy, this is so beautiful, and I love the way you backed it too. Well, you know, we talk always about ways that you can back stuff. This is really nice. It's actually backed with fabric. It's this fabric. But isn't that nice, right? Because you're going to have piping in there, like that cotton cord, the piping, and you're literally just wrapping it and tacking it down here, right? Just tacking it. Such a good finish, and you're tucking the envelope corners in, right? Because there's extra weight in there. Maybe you even clip them on the diagonal, but you tuck them in, and then you're doing like a little stitch along, right? Just tacking it down on the back of the loops, not going through, not going nuts, just tacking it down. But what a great finish. And it gives such a nice effect, doesn't it? I really like this kind of an edge even more than whipped edges for myself. I prefer that. I love seeing fabric on the edge. It looks so tidy. And I always struggle with colors of yarn when I'm finishing stuff. And here is another one. This one, Susan sent this. Yeah, Susan Barnard sent this one. Susan is like also just another amazing artist. So Susan sent this, and it arrived, I think, yesterday. Another Van Gogh chair. And if you know Susan from our Facebook group, she does a lot with animals. She's got some beautiful dogs. I think she must have cats too. But she does a lot of really whimsical stuff with animals. And there's the Van Gogh chair. And here's all the mischief that the cats are getting up to. You can see there's a lot of nonsense happening in here. I just love her super, super, super whimsical pieces. So much fun. I think Susan's going to come when the Van Gogh exhibit happens. We were going back and forth a little bit about that, but I would love that because Susan is a much, much better hooker than I am. So that's why my mouth is going to be talking and other people are going to be hooking. Absolutely beautiful. Right, let me show close up too, like all the window. Ah, so good, isn't it? Ah, so good. So pretty, and I like these rings too. That's going to help. I can hang anything no matter what, so don't worry about that. I can hang anything and nothing's going to get damaged. Everything is safe. So, Cass says, Susan, it is so lovely and cheerful. Looks like what your pets do. Melody, oh my, that'll go perfect. Looking for my complete works of. Yeah, me too. I haven't started mine yet. I have to say, so many things I haven't started yet. I hope I have time to get to the Van Gogh, but they've been coming in like crazy, and I'm so excited. I'm so proud and pleased of everything that I'm seeing. I can't wait for other people to see it. I can't wait to hear the questions, the praise, to record it, to be able to put it online so you can hear it too, and that you feel so good about what you've done. I really like it too. So good. All right, so let's switch gears and let's get into our content for tonight. I have so many things to tell you. This is what I'm working on as soon as I log off later. I'm going to have a little break. I've got my, I think I showed you this. I forget what I called this. If anybody knows, let me know. I forget. Is it called, it's a female shopper, right, with all the big thing of gifts and the cityscape in the background. Maybe I called it Busy Sidewalks or something like that. Can you believe I can't remember? The names usually don't mean much to me, but I'm going to start working on that. And I have here, Jacob actually did this for me. He tied up this red cashmere sweater that I'm using this sweater, cutting it into strips. It already had lots of holes. Otherwise, I'd never be cutting up a cashmere sweater, even one from TJ Maxx. But it has tons of holes. So I'm going to cut this up and I'm going to use that for her coat. And then inside, I haven't really opened it yet. He put a bunch of fabrics that he color planned for me to do this piece. So that's going to be fun because I always color plan my own stuff. And now I have a kit set up for me just like this. And it was all tied up like this. And I said, you know, all I need now is like a stick and I can just like run away from home, right? I just like this, just run away from home, which sometimes I feel like doing, I'll tell you. All right, City Sidewalk. That sounds good. City Sidewalk, busy sidewalk. Ah, that's my favorite Christmas song. So let's talk about some things that have to do, motifs that we know through the years, coming into the winter holidays, specifically Christmas, right? Tonight, specifically Christmas. And if you don't celebrate Christmas, I'm sorry if this is hopefully not offensive. Hopefully it's never offensive to talk about holidays because we're going to talk about other holidays in subsequent shows as the month goes on, as we get into next week. So some of the content tonight is religious just because of the story of Christmas. So I just disclaimer wise, you know that I feel religious, but like not everybody does, and I know that. So I'm keeping it to a minimum. And for example, we're going to be talking about the three wise men, things like that. So a little bit of that, but I'm trying to keep it very balanced tonight and very academic tonight. So that's my disclaimer. Let me have a swig of the black rum. Pales in comparison to the pumpkin eggnog, but this is what I got. Andrea, you said I bought 2 green jumpers today to do a Prati wreath. Fantastic. So perfect, isn't it? When you go to, oh my gosh, I forgot to post a video I did yesterday. I did a video yesterday. Be looking for it tomorrow on hooking with Fair Isle sweaters. I was literally cutting up strips of Fair Isle sweaters and hooking them into latch hook backing because there's no way Fair Isle is going to pull through a traditional rug hooking backing. Too tight, right? Too tight. Atomized. But those beautiful Fair Isles that give you all of those great designs. I have some sweaters of Jossie's that she grew out of, 6 years ago. I'm cutting those. I mean, it sounds awful, but it's going to be something beautiful when I'm done. So be looking for that video, cutting up your sweaters. Even if you are hooking with stuff, you're going to have leftovers, right? And then it is fun to do Prati with the leftovers or applique, or that video that Jacob made while I was in Concord, putting the wreath together out of all irregular squares. Armpits, cuffs, hems, plackets, collars, things that you really can't use, right? So many things to do. Don't waste any of it. Keep it all, right? So, oh gosh, those are the right glasses. All right, here we go. Let's switch screens here. I have an eye on you there. And let's come to our first slide. Okay, so this is just, I'm showing you some slides tonight. I've got a lot of images, and some of them are images like this one that are in the Ribbon Candy Hooking store. Yes, I'm also selling. I have to, right? Because putting these episodes together takes at least a full day. So this is one of the images that is in the Ribbon Candy Hooking store. This is a vintage postcard, and I'm just using it as our kind of frontispiece, because it's like, it's got the stockings, it's got the clock, it's got this beautiful sort of vintage mom looking at the fire with the silhouettes of these little buttons in their one-piece PJs. I mean, it's got some of the tropes of Christmas that we love. It's not over the top, but it certainly seems like Christmas, doesn't it? In a composition like this, I am Juliet. I hope so. You can put that on my tombstone too, because I'm never going to be crushed into ashes. I'll tell you, I can't. Just in case I need this body for like something in the future, you can definitely put that on my tombstone. That I was a pack rat enabler, and I will be proud looking down. Hopefully, looking down. But I like this piece because I like the long stockings. Right, it's the old-fashioned stocking. It's not the Walmart stocking of faux red fur with the big white cuff, which I also love. It's a traditional stocking. It's a real cute picture with the shadows of the kids coming forward, right? What a great composition, that kind of reflection. But what I really love about this piece is this playful border. This is something fun you could do with this pattern or with any pattern, right? The horn, the doll or the dollies, the drum, the socks, the stocking stars. I mean, it's just a little soldier, super cute. It is a very broken border, right? And if you drew it, you might think, I'm not sure that this is strong enough. But it is. And it's interesting, this border in this image for me, because I would expect to see the border in black, wouldn't you? Or forest green. And it's white. I don't know that for me, I would sit with the white. I would be, I like it light, but I think I would be tempted on an image like this to make the border same colors all the way around, lots of golds, lots of greens, lots of smoky blues. But I think I'd be tempted to make the border for myself more like of a cantaloupe melon color or like a pink color. That's just me. But the white works. Black would work. It's just different. It gives us kind of pause for thought. So the first subject that I want to get into, okay, so I'm showing the image here of city sidewalks or city sidewalk. So this is the project. This is in Ribbon Candy Hooking. This is I moved the hand on the left in the actual image because I thought it was too far away and too unbelievable. So that hand on the left, I have shifted. This was something that took a lot of brain power for me, but I moved it from, you're never really done, are you? From here to here. I liked it here when I drew it, and then I thought, nope, it looks like GOGH Gadget arm, so I moved it, remember GOGH Gadget? So I moved it here, and I feel like that's better, and it almost adds to the sense that the packages are outweighing her. She's just a little thing, and she's about to tip over. Hence the miserable expression on the face. I never look like that when I'm Christmas shopping. I love the commercial part of Christmas so much. Isn't that awful? It's one of my favorite parts. One of my favorite parts. So the first thing I want to talk about, a tartan border. Ooh, Andrea, that would be, whoa. Okay, wait a minute. Let me look at that again because I'm thinking even you could cut up something tartan, right? Like a plaid scarf or sweater. That would be really, really, really cool. I would love that. It would be a busy border. You'd have to be careful with the elements, but you could just put one ring of white around the elements just to break it, and then that patterned background would be just, I think, amazing. Great idea with the tartan. Tartan for me, and maybe, I know not everybody feels the same way, but at Christmas time, in winter, tartan for me feels like a neutral. Any tartan, like not just Black Watch, but like any of them. They read as neutrals to me in this season, not in June. But now they really do. And it's interesting because they're like shapeshifters for me for that reason. So I am working on this one now, and I'm going to be working on it, I think, through the holidays because I like to work on Christmas during Christmas. The first subject I want to get into, ooh, Juliet says you could have a coordinated, wait a minute, let me stop here for a second. A coordinated horizontal fireplace hearth rugs with the packages all dumped and spilled. Oh, that would be really cool. That would, Juliet, oh my God, that is an amazing idea. So you're saying like an image like this, somebody toppled carrying gifts on the wall above the hearth, and then on the floor under it, a rug of like all the gifts scattered, haven't fallen. Is that what you mean? That is unbelievably brilliant. I can't believe that. That is insane. I love that. almost like a trompe l'oeil on the ground with everything fallen. Tons, same colors. Oh my God, I love that. I love that. Oh, I love that. You can even have like her boots, like, because in the image I have like purple, like high heel boots on her. You can even have like the tips of the boots, like she's standing over it, like, oh my God. Oh, I love that. Oh, I love that. All right. The first subject I'm going to tackle tonight is the idea of gift giving, right? So when we talk about holiday gift giving, right, this is certainly my kids' favorite part of the season. Oh, Juliet, you are a series girl. You are a series girl, a serious series girl. You are. That is so funny. I love that idea. I'm gonna wait and watch you. I'm gonna wait for a lead on that. And next year, I feel like I want to do that exact thing and be a copycat. The idea of gift giving, obviously for children, is one of the most appealing aspects of a Christmas holiday. And you probably already have figured it out in your head 1,000 times that the practice of gift giving and the tradition of gift giving goes back to Europe. Well, no, it goes back to the birth of Jesus, right? And the story of Jesus and the idea of the three wise men bringing gifts. So let's come back to that in just a second. I'm just showing this image because this is from the Basilica of Sant Apollinare in Nuovo in Ravenna, Italy, right? So this is like a serious destination for people. The Ravenna mosaics, I have talked about them on Coffee Time before. They're over the top. These images would be copyright free because, yeah, these are super, these are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years old. But Ravenna is like the hotbed of ancient and colorful, well-preserved mosaics. And this is just one that happened. Melanie. We Three Kings, absolutely. This is just one that's there. And look at these beautiful, bright colors. And it's even naming the three wise men. So let's come to that in just a second. So the idea of gift giving certainly comes from the wise men bringing gifts to the baby. And again, I just want to loop back to the idea that whether you are religious or not, Christian or not, doesn't matter to me at all. I just love to make the point that at Christmas, I personally love the idea of a baby being born and representing hope. Like, to me, the rest of the story is kind of secondary, but for me at this time of year when I'm usually super depressed, when I think of that symbolism of a child being born, it like chokes me up, and bringing hope into a very cold, dark world. That's a good thought. That's a positive thing in anyone's book. So religion aside, storytelling aside, everything, right? I love the idea. I love the image. And there are quite a few images popping up. You are going to see these again next week on gallery night. Robin, I saw that you posted this and I peeled it and I want to look at it again next week. But this popped up on our Facebook group, Rug Cooking and Punch Needle Club. Oh my God, you've been to Ravenna. Was it as amazing as everyone says? I mean, it must be, right? I've got to go. I've got to go. I was just talking to somebody at a bookstore the other day who'd been recently and had also done the whole like Dante thing. And I thought, oh man, I don't like to say bucket list because I always hope that I'll make it, that I'm young enough that I'll make it to places I love another 100 times. I've been to Italy. I've spent a lot of time there, but I've never been to Ravenna. And that is like, shame on me. I'm hoping I go soon. Not just for the pasta, although that's a big part of it. Robin, this is a beautiful piece, and I want to show it again next week, but I just wanted to touch on this piece of Robin's. And Robin, you said finished and hung for Christmas. I sewed wool around the edges of the pattern, stretched it over a canvas frame, and stapled onto it. We're going to look at that next week on gallery night, how that's done, because that is a fantastic permanent finish. Next time I'll leave a little extra room. And this is a Kelly Smith design. I love Kelly. Beautiful design, and I also noticed, Candace, I'm using yours next week too. Same design, completely different. So Candace is on tonight, Robin is on tonight, same Kelly Smith design, beautiful wise men, the Magi, right? The gifts of the Magi scene. So beautiful. So hold on just a second. I'm going to come back to the gift giving, but let's just follow through this Magi story just for a second. So this sent me down the rabbit hole a little bit because although I know the songs, the Christmas songs, and although as a child I was in pageants, of course, every year, everything was super sexist then. So of course I was never a wise man. I was like Mary or chorus. It was usually chorus. Patrice was always merry. Also, wow, absolutely. So I just wanted to refresh my mind before I strayed too far from the subject. I like the idea of the three kings. I like the idea of bearing the gifts, and it has symbolism as well. And the symbolism is interesting. So I picked this up off the story of the Magi. I picked up off of the nationalgeographic.com website, and it's their culture section. It's an article under culture that's called Three Kings, Magi, Epiphany. And the article is called, I just took some pieces out of it, Who Were the Three Kings in the Christmas Story? And this isn't stuff that I had in the front of my mind, right, after so many years of Catholic school. Appearing only once in the story of the baby's birth, I'm going to stay away from too much religious language because I don't want to offend people. The wise men from the East made a lasting impression in the Christian imagination. And this article is by Jean-Pierre Isbouts, Isbouts. And it said, many Christmas carols make mention of the three kings who follow the star and come to pay homage to the baby in Bethlehem. In the Bible, they are not called kings. This is the part that I found interesting. And their number is not specified. Instead, they are called wise men from the East. At many courts in the East, including ancient Babylon and Persia, learned astrologers often served as priestly advisors and practiced the art of magic. In the centuries since, the three magi have been interpreted as kings. Isn't that interesting that this is not part of the original story? According to the book of Matthew, a bright star led the magi, which is the three wise men plural, from the east until it stopped over the place where the child was. And upon entering the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary. This is Matthew 1:24. The Magi knelt down for the baby and offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And so now building this backstory, because we probably know that part, whether you celebrate or not. Later tellings of the story identified the Magi by name, much later tellings, and identified their lands of origin. For example, Melchior hailed from Persia, Gaspar, who's also sometimes Casper or Jasper, same person, from India, and Balthazar from Arabia. These sometimes switch out too. Their gifts have symbolic meaning as well. So, for example, in this article, the National Geographic, it said gold signifies Jesus' status as a king himself. Frankincense represented the infant's divinity and identity as the Son of God. And myrrh touched upon Jesus' mortality. Now, that was the one that put me into a tailspin and got me searching some more. Popular depictions of Christmas seem to compress the nativity story. Of course they do, because we want everything in nuggets, don't we? We don't want to know the king's name or where they hail from. We just want something in a nugget so we can walk away 10 seconds later. It's getting to be more and more like that, isn't it? Seem to compress the nativity story, making it appear as though the three kings show up in Bethlehem on Christmas, but traditional celebrations put their visit 12 days after Christmas. And the day is called Epiphany or Three Kings Day. I don't think we hear Three Kings Day as much. It is the official commemoration of the arrival of the Magi and is one of Christianity's oldest holidays, Three Kings Day. Roman Catholics celebrate Epiphany on January 6th, so we're not there yet at all. And Orthodox Christian faiths celebrate on January 19th. Remember when we were talking in October about the two different calendars, the Julian calendar being the one that Julius Caesar made up and the other one being the Gregorian calendar, and how they were off by several weeks, and how in Europe people still celebrate Christmas, like in the Netherlands, on different days? There are two Christmases because there are still people who favor one calendar over the other, less and less as time goes on, but there are still two calendars working, right, in the present day. I find that incredible. There's a historical question about Jesus' actual birthday. It's debated that the actual birthday was April 6th. Pope Julius proclaimed it as December 25th, 350 years AD. Thank you, Karen. I don't have that at all in there, so that's very, very helpful. There's always going to be these conversations, right? And they're all interesting. They're all interesting. They're all, as long as that calendar creates as much confusion as it does by being weeks off, not hours off, that's always going to be Jack the Tripper, isn't it? A little bit. I think the question of Jesus' birth is a larger conversation than that. But it brought me to the song We Three Kings, right? And most people know the song. I love this song. Have you ever heard the version of We Three Kings sung by Ella Fitzgerald? It is unbelievably different. If you haven't, write it down. You must. After the show, it is so, it sounds like one of the tracks off Aladdin or something. I hope that wasn't insensitive to say. But it is so magical sounding. It is so sweeping and magical, and it doesn't sound like any other versions of it. It doesn't sound like anything else. It's absolutely beautiful. So the song goes like this, and you know this part. It's like, we three kings of Orient are, bearing gifts we traverse afar. And this is beautiful. Field and fountain, moor and mountain. My voice is shot, but you know what I mean. Following yonder star, oh. And then we get into some really odd verses. And some of these verses I never noticed before. And it's going to tell us what the Magi bring. And it's going to be real specific. And I somehow sing these songs in church settings, caroling, but I never heard the words before. And I'm not sure that all of these words are included in every version of the song. I'm going to have to listen to Ella's version. Again, I'm super stuffed up. I'm sorry. I'm trying not to blow my nose. It's not helping with the singing. So this is one of the odd verses. So we're going to hear what all three kings bring in this one song. Melchior, king of Arabia, was 60 years old, right? So there is an idea of like the ages and the where from for all of these kings. Melchior, king of Arabia, was 60. He brought a casket of gold in the form of a shrine, thus a generation apart in age from the other two kings. And hailing from three different nations, they symbolize, okay, so they're all different ages. They symbolize the ages of man. Isn't that interesting? The ages of man, like the oldest, like the winter, the sort of middle age, is like a Frank Sinatra song, isn't it? And then the very young man. And they also represent, in terms of where they're from, they represent the farthest sort of points of the known ancient world, at least at that time when the story was evolving, right? So that's interesting too, because it's like putting points on a map and saying, three different ages representing the three ages of men and the entire ancient world as we know it, right? Interesting. So this one goes, born a king on Bethlehem's plain, gold I bring to crown him again. So this is the guy that brings gold. King forever, ceasing never. So we know that, but have you ever noticed that in that verse, it's talking about Melchior bringing that golden shrine. Sometimes it's a casket, isn't it? Casket of gold, like a trunk, not like a death casket. Then Balthazar comes to the front of the song, and he starts, so he's the king of Ethiopia, which then is called Saba. And this is known as the land of spices, right? So he's 40, right? So he's the one who's like, it's like awful to say middle-aged, right? I'm 50. And he brings frankincense. And his verse goes like this. Frankincense I offer have I, incense owns a deity nigh, prayer and praising voices raising, worshiping God on high. Oh. Now that's one that you don't hear in every song for sure. And then the third one, and I'm going to stop, right, is Gaspar or Jasper or Casper. It's all the same person, and he's from Turkey. And he's from Tarsus, which is now central Turkey. So this area in the ancient world is known as the, whereas like Ethiopia is like the land of spices, this is the land of merchants. So a lot of trade is done here. And that's what he represents at the age of 20, a very young man. He represents like the spring of his lifetime. So he's 20 when he brings the myrrh. And he also represents mortality, right? He's the youngest one, but it is a reminder that he is young. He will become old. None of us are infallible. We will all become old, and the jig will be up. So his verse goes, myrrh is mine, its bitter perfume breeds a life of gathering gloom, sorrowing, sighing, bleeding, dying, sealed in a stone cold tomb. I really don't feel well. I'm sorry about that. But I think it's a beautiful verse. I think the language is so there. And it gives you such a visual of what the Magi are carrying. And these are the gifts, right? So this is the first example in the human story of people bringing gifts like this, right, to celebrate an event. And this is why we give gifts at Christmas, because it's the right time of the year. Sorry, sniffling. Because of Christmas, because of the story of the Magi. And this brought me to, let me just show you some of the fun. Oh, thanks, Lori. I do feel like I'm a good singer, but definitely not tonight. But I'm still going to give it a whack, right? Because that song's too good. You got to listen to the Ella Fitzgerald version of it. It's so mystical. So I pulled some pictures off the internet that I just thought were great vintage pictures of gift giving. Because we're not talking about Santa now. We're talking about people giving other people gifts because they love them and because they honor them, because they're happy to see them, because they're thinking about them, because they celebrate them, right? The idea of giving gifts, I think sometimes, oh, I'm reading the thread too. It is interesting. Sometimes I think, you know, and this is this is like up for grabs, right? Everybody's allowed to feel how they feel, but I sometimes feel upset when people say a lot about how crappily commercial Christmas has become, because I love that part of it. I've always loved that part of it. I buy gifts all year and I save them. When I find the perfect gift, I save it. And I cannot wait to give it. And yes, I love a live nativity. And yes, I love a midnight mass. And I love all that stuff. And I love the stories that go with the season. But I also love frantically shopping, getting tons and tons of gifts, and giving them to people that I love. I love that. And I'm not sorry at all if we are a nation of pigs who like to buy gifts for each other. Hey, if the money's there and stores are staying open and then you stop for food at a restaurant and you're finished your Christmas shopping, for me, that's fine. It's subjective. But I like looking at historical pictures of people gift giving because I think it reminds us that, you know, you are not a loathed person if you are a gift giver, right? This woman obviously intensely loves gifts, right? Either one she's wrapping or one she's receiving. I just thought, so cute, so cute. And this brought me, oh, this is one of the images I have in ribbon candy hooking. I thought this is a nice sort of cute, tame one, separating people giving gifts from asking Santa for gifts, right? We're going to cover that next. Good, Sharon. Oh, you're going to love it. You're going to love it, Sharon. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. It's the best version in my mind. I just love this one. A wish of kindly meaning and greeting from a friend. A joyous Christmas. Why not? Hey, I was thinking of you. I got something nice. When I saw it, I thought of you. I hope you love it. I hope you think of me every time you use it and look at it. I love that part of Christmas. I do. And you know what it reminds me of? One of my favorite subjects. I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole because I can't, but I had to include some. If you've been with me a while, you know one of my favorite subjects besides rug making is the history of department stores, and I cannot get enough. I have been like a student of mostly defunct department stores for years. And I love a good old department store that's closed because of the nostalgia, because of the memories. I also love its place in history. From the Victorian period, if you remember the TV show Selfridge, this image is more from that period. So, for example, this is Macy's in this is 1884. An etching of people standing outside Macy's, and what are they doing? Look at the wonderland inside the windows. It's free. You can come to the sidewalk. You can. I like the spats in the last one too. You know, you don't have to be rich to buy a ticket to the theater, right? You can come to the sidewalk and you look in the windows if you're thinking about the Christmas Story, right? The movie, like that wonderland of stuff in the window, all that bliss. This is the same thing, but this is how it starts, right? If you remember the Selfridge series that I always thought it's my favorite show, I think, ever. I love how they represented the change in department store history display-wise, right, composition-wise. When Selfridge starts, they show these vast paned glass windows with tons of stuff in them that wouldn't change often, right? Because it was so much stuff. Handkerchiefs fanned out like this in every color. I mean, it was like kaleidoscope. It was overwhelming. And as the series goes on, because it goes through the years, you start to see that push toward modern times, right, in the 1920s, where people are like, don't show me a bunch of garbage in the window. Please show me like a scene. Show me something that I can dream about when I fall asleep tonight. And then they started showing you more like vignettes. They were more minimalist, more suggestive scenes where they would show you a bedroom and somebody getting into bed and lovely quilts on the bed and things on the wall and rugs on the floor and perfumes and stuff on the vanity table. And it was much more focused and it was more of a story, and they changed over more often. And then they would have people that came in that specifically, not just the French guy, right, in Selfridges, but the windows would change so often to give you something to dream about and to sell you, right, that they needed like a whole staff of people that just did windows in these big department stores everywhere, even small ones in small cities. And it is a great moment in time because for me, my greatest interest in this subject is when we hit the post-war era and people are coming home from war and people are moving out to the suburbs and they're making trips into the city, right? Or they're living on the sort of twilight of the city, not in the center of the city anymore, getting out of these urban areas and trying to buy a part of the American dream for themselves. And here they come at Christmas time into the city and this wonderland. I mean, the whole year's culmination of wonderful windows and vignettes pops at Christmas, and it's everybody's dream. And what I love about it is, in a weird way, they're telling you what you want to buy. And it is power of suggestion, right? Isn't it? Because they're saying in the different classes of department store, right? Not everyone is like a super high-end one, like a Gimbel's or a Saks. Some of them are lower end, right? Depends on the city and their sort of position on the shopping scale. But you get different wares in different department stores. But at Christmas, you always get the dream of the window. And it's free. It's for everybody. You just walk up the sideway and you see this thing that at that moment in time would have been high theater, right? It might be the best thing that you saw all year in terms of like, oh my God, how did they do that? There's robots in the window working, moving. I mean, it would have been insane. It would have been insane. And getting, toward the end of the 19th century, and this isn't for tonight, but we're talking about animatronics and the introduction of moving parts, which for kids was literally magic. Window dressers. Oh, so much fun. So this was Macy's 1884. I had to put some of these into our slideshow for tonight just because I love it. This is the 1900s. This is also Macy's. So you can see by their costume, these are not like super wealthy kids. Some of these coats look quite nice on the right, but on the left, more kind of like, more of, not to be insensitive, but more of like an immigrant costume. So we're not talking about only people who could shop at Macy's. We're talking about everybody taking a look. I mean, this is a little bit odd, babies flying through the sky, but I don't think anybody would have questioned content at that moment. I just can't get enough of looking at these kinds of pictures. I hope they're nostalgic for you too. This one reminds me of, in one of my books, I couldn't find it online, but one of the most famous department store windows, and I can't remember what store it was, of all time, was one of the first animatronic windows where what they had was like a hole in the side of the building, like a letter slot, and you could drop your letter off to Santa. You would put it right into the hole, and it fell onto a conveyor belt. And the conveyor belt went right up into the window scene, and there were elves there that were stamping things like this, and they were moving. And kids would have thought they were absolutely 100% real. They were stamping them, and then I think the conveyor belt moved and all the letters dropped into a big sack, and Santa was standing there. So the idea was like they're being, the post is being applied to the envelope, going right into Santa's stack. He will certainly receive them. He's standing right there. I mean, the description of this window was like children lost their minds. It was the most exciting thing ever. And it's so quaint to think about that stuff now. And we have a little bit of that with kids sitting on Santa's lap and stuff. But can you imagine being a kid and putting your letter there and watching your letter with your handwriting go up the conveyor belt and be stamped, by someone? Unbelievable. It was just unbelievable. I just thought it was just the height of excitement and helps me remember the feeling of being that age. So just moving through some of these pictures quickly because I love them so much. A good source for composition if you like doing your own designing, look at some of these vintage window displays, right? They are so beautiful. This is a dollhouse, but it's also got like a little ski thing happening here. Some pretty dolls in the windows, things that they wanted to sell that would have been big sellers then. This is an interesting one. Do you remember Woolworths or any pharmacy having a massive window display? Because I was born in 72, so I didn't get this. But I know from looking at my books that pharmacies a decade or two earlier were going full blast with windows displays. Now they're putting things in the window that they sell. So it's not the same as a Macy's display. But if I were living at this time and I was, an extra in the movie The Bishop's Wife, my favorite Christmas movie, and I was approaching this window, I would lose my mind. I'd be like, look at all those boxes of Cody and other things that they have to sell me. This is unbelievable. I could be standing here for hours looking in on something like this. I wonder if you remember that. So lots of displays, lots of inspiration. You could peel a wonderful composition off of a composite. Toyland, for most department stores at this time, they had a Toyland, didn't they? Inside the toy department, and that's where Santa was at. And they would theme it out differently every year, right? And if you remember, write it in the thread because I want to read it. And also send it to me on Facebook. I love collecting memories of people being at these old department stores and your memory of shopping and what your local one was like, because probably your local department store isn't there anymore, sadly, just like your local amusement park. Sears is still kicking, but we really don't see crazy decorations like on the first floor like we would back in the 50s and 60s. Oops, wait a minute. And this goes as far as to, it's not just department stores, is it? Like, it's every kind of a store. Donaldson's is a friendly Christmas store. Hardware stores did these kinds of displays with like the amount, look at the amount of Christmas trees being displayed. We get a feel for the year. I don't know the year, but I'm kind of a dummy with cars, but I'm guessing this is like the late 50s. Absolutely beautiful. And car places were doing this too with their displays. This is Oldsmobile, right? For somebody who had everything, including a lot of extra money, how fun would it be, for somebody to give you a Model T or a Model whatever for Christmas, right? They're showing Christmas trees and, hey, look what's coming out of the chimney. It's an automobile. Are you kidding? I got to read some of the comments that are coming in. Andrea said, Harrods used to be a wonderful room. Scenes, recent years, they've gone down the money route with perfume-sponsored companies. That is sad. I haven't been to London for a few years, but I agree. Egyptian Hall is my favorite part of Harrods. I hope that hasn't changed in like the last few years. But I agree with you. And when I lived in London, I kind of felt like Liberty's was the better store for Christmas. It was just, had more of the feel, I guess the Tudor look of the building too. But I agree with you. The last times I've been in London, I was a bit disappointed with the window dressing. But I also feel that way in New York. I'm not getting that feeling that I want. I'm not getting that vintage feeling anymore. I think it is a money thing and a sponsorship thing, and that is super sad. Lisa says the building owner of our old Western Auto decorated their windows like it had been back in the 1970s. Did you take a picture? And can you post it somewhere? Can you send it to me? They did like a replica of a 1970s era window. That is a great inspiration. That's a great story rug, isn't it? Oh my word. Melanie says, I remember the toy and hobby shop window. My mom had to drag me away. I bet. You're like clawed onto it, right? It's so exciting. It's so exciting. I keep saying to my kids, you sure you don't want to go to New York this winter to see the tree and stuff? And they don't, but they might end up being driven there anyway. So I just had to include this postcard. This is another one I have in ribbon candy hooking. Some of these postcards are selling, and I'm so happy because I love them, and I'm dying to see them done. And please let me know if you do any of these. Speaking of Oldsmobile, right? This is the same kind of era of car, and here comes Santa, not in his sleigh, but in his automatic sleigh, right? And this was a big conversation during the automobile age. More and more people buying cars, and owning cars. More cars on the street. We see more images of Santa riding in a car rather than riding on a sleigh. And this one is another one I have in there. I just wanted to include this one because it's such a quaint one and I hadn't seen it before. The idea of gift giving, a very storybook style cottage. I would say English, but I think at this moment there's more of these cottages in Hollywood, California, than there are in the English countryside. It's such an exaggerated style, right? Oh, Mom, that's okay. It's busy times, Mom. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. So moving on to the idea of Santa as a gift giver, as opposed to you or I, right? As opposed to a family member or a friend giving gifts. The idea of asking Santa for gifts is something very different. So, oh, you know what? Before we get there, I found this. This might be fun for you if you're enjoying this specific conversation. I found a great blog. It's a British blog. It's called Old N, just the letter N, Dazed, right? So not olden days, but Old N Dazed, right? Like dazed. .co.uk, and it's Vintage Christmas Presents, What Father Christmas Used to Bring Us. And this is just a beautiful, funny article that you might enjoy. So you might want to write this down. Um, this is the man who's writing this is a blogger, obviously, and he writes this beautiful, funny entry about what Father Christmas used to give us. And he said, if I could start earlier, like in the timeline of gift giving, like earlier in the 20th century, I would. But his memory goes back to the 1960s. So starting in the 1960s, I'll just read an excerpt for you because it's so cute. He wrote, "If I don't mention your favorite vintage Christmas toys or presents or festive tradition, apologies. It just means I personally didn't receive those gifts or didn't practice the tradition. We all do Christmas in our own way. With three sisters, I can also give an insight, admittedly not much of one, into what girls were looking forward to at Christmas in the 1960s. In this article, we go on a journey from wide-eyed childhood to being the parent who has to overspend and onto the bemused grandfather. So that's where he's at now, is being the grandfather. So he's gone through like the three ages of men, right, with the gift giving. And he describes the gift giving accordingly. And he considers children now to be quite spoiled. I disagree with that personally. I think it depends on the family, depends on the money situation. It depends on everything. There's a lot of like moving targets in there. But he talks about vintage presents from the 60s, full employment. England won the World Cup. The Beatles and the Stones were rocking the planet. What a decade. We'll gloss over the Kennedy assassination and the threat of nuclear Armageddon and the other horrendous civil rights issues of that day because we're talking about gifts here. As a child of the 60s, Christmas was a time of wonder, excitement, and black and white movies. It was also impossible to sleep on Christmas Eve whilst waiting for Father Christmas or for Dad to finish the late shift. Oh, to be able to regain that sense of wonder and innocence. In the 60s, money in the bank was still a tradition. Now, I don't know if this is the same in the US because I wasn't a child in the 60s, but let me know if you have a memory of this. In our family, at least, the kids would find an orange, an apple, and shiny coins at the bottom of their stocking. If you tried to give kids shiny pennies nowadays, they would probably have a hissy fit and demand to know where you've hidden the prepaid debit card. I hope that that's not true. So money in the bank, like getting money was still a thing, right? And getting fruits. Get the good stuff. Once the orange had been nibbled and the coins deposited into the piggy bank, and he said mine was actually a rabbit, it was time to dive under the tree and open the presents. After all, when you're a kid, Christmas is all about presents. Or, to be more specific, toys. Some gems I remember from this golden decade include my first Action Man figure. Action Man was definitely the second best thing to happen in 1966. If it hadn't been for the keen eyesight of a Russian linesman, it may have been the best. I had a deep sea diver model as well as the normal army character. Does anyone else remember not being able to get the gun to stick in Action Man's hand? I don't remember that, but I do remember not being able to get the weapons to stick in the Star Wars characters' hands. Or at least once they were in there, not being able to remove them again. I also remember losing the shoes on the Barbie dolls, right? Because they never fit right, and you always lost one, and it was impossible to find it again. Super triggering, wasn't it? So he goes through the sort of chronology of gifts through the decades to the present, now that he's a grandfather. And it really is a cute blog. It's called dazedandconfused.co.uk. So you might enjoy that. It is a long blog, and it is super cute. Sue's, good to see you. You have Christmas postcards with the name of the recipient only. No address, no. The mail carrier knew where to deliver it. And the thing about those postcards that's really interesting is there was a time with postcards where if you wrote on the blank side of the postcard, if you wrote your whole letter there, you would get charged more than if you just had it addressed. And that's the reason why you often find postcards from, I think, the late 19th century through the early 20th century, the Victorian period, through the Edwardian period. You find postcards that the whole front of them, where the image is written over with, "Dear Jane, it was so nice to see you last weekend. I can't wait for your next visit." Because if they wrote it on the blank side, it would cost more. So that's interesting when you find those postcards in antique stores. That's one of the things to look for, right? Because that really is a moment in time to get the blank card, but then often have the note written on the front. And people sent so many postcards in those days that you didn't always have to accompany it with a letter, right? You just wanted the person to know you were thinking of them. It's like sending an email, hey, how's it going? What's up, dog? Like it's kind of the same thing, isn't it? Karen says we always got a tangerine in our stocking. I still do that today, but get tangerines with the leaves still attached. Oh, Melanie says spirograph, Betsy walking doll, and roller skates. I remember roller skates too. That was a big one. That was a big one. Right to the rolling rink, right? There's hardly any of those anymore now. Stephanie says oranges and ribbon candy were always in our stockings in the 60s. Oh, isn't that amazing? Oh, I just love that. I just love that. Oh, man. All right. So I was transitioning. I get so distracted because I love these cars. I feel like you're sitting right with me, like right here. I'm all by myself, but I feel like you are, and it just makes me want to chat instead of run a show. Let's run a show. So making the transition, still the subject of gift giving, to the idea of Santa over the years, and different Saint Nicks, right, in different places. So let's just cover this quickly here because I know you're going to rattle these off with me. But the idea of a Santa character, a Saint Nick character, a Kris Kringle character changes over the years because the earliest illustrations, pre-Thomas Nash, right, pre-Coca-Cola, the earliest illustrations of Santa Claus, at least in the U.S., he's like a skinny, like stern-looking guy with a birch rod to like whip your butt with, right? So this is like the way Santa is introduced to us before we get the big, jolly, fat old elf with the rosy cheeks, you know? There's a lot of that kind of Santa before Coca-Cola, right? And we see that signature Santa that I think we now only associate with Santa Claus. Satsuma chocolate coins topped with prezzies in my stocking. Oh, that sounds so good. I didn't get to any British traditions in this one, Andrea, and I really want to because I love like the plum pudding, the figgy pudding, the crackers. There were a whole bunch of wacky ones when we were there. There was a bunch of the egg, right? Like, what's that egg called? Oh, I didn't particularly like the egg, I have to say. What is the egg? I know you know. It's like, oh, a Scotch egg. It's a Scotch egg, right? It's like breaded on the outside. I ate it. I always eat what I'm given, right? I always eat what I'm given. But it wasn't my fave. I like all the puddings and stuff better. So good. So speaking of this man, he's called different things in different places, as you know. So it is believed that Nicholas, Saint Nicholas, he is a real person, born sometimes around AD 280, right, near Mira in modern day Turkey. So that is like documented, right? So that is for, I want to say for sure, but you always get different information 10 years later. So I'm going to say that's what is believed in 2022. He was much admired. You know, I should have put the slide in here. I read during the year, it was like in the summer, I read I think it was the biography or the autobiography. I think it must have been the biography. I'm not sure if it was jokingly written in the first person, but either the biography or autobiography of Santa Claus, and it was wonderful. And it told in detail the story of this boy, right, from Turkey who, I forget the circumstances, but had this crazy windfall of money and felt he wanted to share it. And he noticed that there was a man in town who had, I hope I don't screw the story up because I'm going from memory completely, 3 daughters that could not wed without a dowry, and they all wanted to. And he wanted to give the money for the 3 daughters, but for it to be anonymous because he knew it wouldn't be accepted if it wasn't. And at least in this biography I read, as the story went, he found a way to get like into their home and hide it in their respective stockings, like pantyhose. And that was the only way that he felt that he could do it, that each one would get to each specific girl. Because there were 3 pairs of pantyhose, I think, hanging on a line inside the bedroom or something. There are creepy aspects, but that's just because we're in 2022, right? This is a beautiful story about somebody who wanted to do a good deed. He saw a way he could do it, and he did it, and he succeeded in doing it. And then he became kind of like addicted to doing good deeds with his money. And he becomes like a religious man, and he becomes Saint Nick, from what I can remember. Again, it was like earlier this year. Known for his kindness, lots of legends that surround him about this inherited wealth that he had that he didn't want, and how he shared it with the poor and the sick, right? And so this person is known as Saint Nicholas. And Santa Claus, like our American Santa Claus, comes from the Dutch Sinterklaas, right, which is a reference to Nicholas. So I talk about the Netherlands a lot because I was born there and I lived there for like 10 years and had the babies over there. In the Netherlands, they still celebrate the Christmas opening gifts holiday on December 5th, and that is because of the difference between the two calendars, right? The Gregorian calendar and the Julian calendar. So there's the difference. They celebrate the religious holiday on the 25th, but they celebrate the gift giving, the old calendar, on December 5th. And it's nice to make that distinction. I won't talk a lot about Sinterklaas because there's a lot of trouble with the political correctness. You can Google it if you want. And I lived in that circle and was always afraid there were going to be race riots when we celebrated Sinterklaas. And they are kind of pulling away from doing things with blackface and things like that as time goes on. I'll just say that the tradition with Sinterklaas is that he arrives on a boat from Turkey and he arrives in Amsterdam. And when we lived there, we were there. And there are a lot of people, black and white people, who are wearing like wigs and have their faces painted to welcome him. But also coming off of the Sinterklaas boat from Turkey are his helpers, who are all also painted, right, and dressed in a very specific way with immaculate costumes on that are kind of interchangeable color costumes, but their faces are painted. So that's problematic. And the most problematic part for me is that they are all called Pete. Like there's no distinction in between one from the other, and they're all called Pete. And while I am not always super correct at all, that bothered me because I had friends over there who were black who said like growing up they were called Pete at school. So that's rough. Like that's rough. They are trying to get away from that tradition, but that is the way the tradition has been for many, many years. And the Dutch are stubborn people. I can say that because I was born there. And I lived there for so long. But Sinterklaas, that's the word, that's the name that we get our Santa Claus from. So Sint is saint in English. So for people in the Netherlands, they're saying Sinterklaas. And in parts of Belgium, where they are Dutch speakers, they're saying Sinterklaas, right? Because Belgium is mostly French, and then they're going to say Père Noël. But the parts of Belgium that are Dutch, they're going to say Sinterklaas. So a little bit of difference, even in a small country like Belgium. And of course, in English, in America and the UK, we could say Santa Claus, Father Christmas, Saint Nick, or Kris Kringle. So those are all interchangeable. In French, Père Noël. In Spanish, Papa Noel. In German, this is a funny one, Weihnachtsmann, which literally translates as white knight man. I mean, if you Google it, it's one word, so it comes up as Santa Claus translation, but the breakdown of that is white knight man. In Italy, Babbo Natale. In Portuguese, Papai Noel. In Russian, Ded Moroz, which is Grandfather Frost. So from country to country, even culture to culture, even within countries, we are saying different things. And this person, this character is being symbolized differently in all of these different places, right? It's very interesting to track the idea of Santa Claus here. So let's look at some of the images of him. I'm sorry for the sniffling. Ooh, what did I miss? I'm going to come back to that in a minute. I want to check that out too. Let me come back here and come to some slides because we're falling behind fast. So, okay, so starting with the Netherlands, because however I feel about the Netherlands, such mixed feelings. Let me just take a sip. I'm struggling a little bit with a sore throat. This is Grote van Sint. So this is greetings from Sint, which translates as Saint Nicholas. These are all images I have in the ribbon candy hooking store. Sint, people say Sint for short instead of Sinterklaas, but Sint is dressed as a saint, right? He is a saint. He doesn't have a costume on. He's dressed as a bishop. So this is still the costume. He carries the staff. Yeah. Again, I'm not going to go too much into this, the culture, because it is a little bit problematic for us now. He is a good person with a lot of helpers. I'm going to just put it like that. And of course, in the Netherlands, people put out their shoes, their boots, their clogs. And in this picture, again, Christmas greetings. This is in English, but this is definitely Sinterklaas, not Santa Claus. This is a bishop. And he is dropping fruits and nuts and things into the children's shoes. And they shouldn't be awake, but they are. I think this is another great image. These are all ones that I have active at Ribbon Candy Hooking. if you don't have time this year, check them out for next year because these really are great images. If you like the lore of these different countries, particularly European countries, with their unique spin, even though the Dutch Christmas is not super sensitive, it is the way that it has been for hundreds of years, right? So we can judge it from afar, but we probably shouldn't. So Sint does for us, like we do in the U.S. He's up on the roof, right? He comes by boat, and then he's walked around on a white steed with all of these peats helping him out, and typically the peats go down the chimney, and that's how they explain the skin tone, the painted skin tone. Weirdly, they have like a huge white Elizabethan ruff, and that is always pristinely white. Just their faces and their hands get colored. So you see what the problem with that is. But he is up on the rooftops, all these beautiful European rooftops. Again, more greetings from Saint Nick. I like this one, this really ornate religious robe with the headdress, which is pretty consistent. He's got the holy book in his hand, and then in the distance you see a small Dutch village. Really, really charming. I'm certainly going to do some of these next year. And here we have a confusing Christmas image. This is another one that I have in ribbon candy hooking. This one poses some odd questions for me because I think that flag in the backpack is meant to be blue, red, and white. And I think it's meant to be Dutch. And the reason I think it's meant to be Dutch is because we see a windmill on the horizon. So that says to me we're looking at the Netherlands. I mean, it doesn't have to be, but this is European Santa for sure. But he's kind of morphing into more like a Santa Claus figure, right, with the costume. He doesn't have the bishop's costume on. He's got like fur trim, and he's got the red robe. And we're seeing a little bit of a crossover, right? This could be more of a Père Noël as well. It could be. I don't know. But this has kind of Punch and Judy dolls and stuff in the basket that he's carrying. He's working in conjunction with an angel here. There's a bit of confusion with that, but I think two symbols, right, for the same holiday, that sits fine with me. I don't know how it sits with you, but composition-wise, it's a beautiful composition, and I love to see the angel standing with Santa. I do. I think this might be a Dutch flag, but if it is, it's wrong because the Dutch flag has the stripes red, white, and blue, and they've got blue, red, and white. So if it is the Dutch flag, it's wrong. And if it's a different flag, let me know. But the windmill was kind of confusing me. So that's another cutie. And then here we've got a European Santa that's a little bit tough to figure. This could be like a Scandinavian type Santa, but I don't know with the robe open, like skirted like that. I don't know. This to me looks like it could be a Père Noël. It certainly looks like a European church in the background, but it says Merry Christmas. So some of these have a little bit of confusion. What does the holly symbolize? Well, we are coming to that shortly. We're coming to at the end of the show, not so much holly, but mistletoe, like that spiky green. We're going to be coming to that at the end of the show. So that is a to be continued. But, this is the idea of Santa bringing a tree because in some countries, Santa sets up the tree on Christmas Eve night after the kids have gone to bed and then decorates it and puts the gifts under it. So that isn't a family tradition. It's something that Santa does. And here he is. We talk about a lot of work, right? Talk about a to-do list. It's just interesting to look at images of him through the ages. We are moving definitely toward the American Santa here. So it's basically the same pose, like Santa coming through the woods with gifts. But this is definitely the American Santa at this point. Really, really sweet image. Some of these I had never seen before. I tried not to include images in the store that other people have used. And here we are full blast. The American Santa, but in a very ornate sleigh. And we're looking at a village that could be an American village. I mean, that could easily be New England. We're seeing two reindeer pulling the sleigh. So, with these postcards, you do see, with all vintage images, you do see the evolution of the story. Oh, interesting. Pretzels on the robe. That's a good one, Juliet. Let's go back to that one. Could be. Definitely could be. Yeah, this one stumps me a lot because I don't expect the Merry Christmas to be written in English with this one. I see you talking about the Lifesaver books, an orange and Lifesaver book in mine. What were the Lifesavers? Oh my God. Oh my God. I forgot about those. Okay. Do they still have those? For those of you who don't know, I have not thought about those since I was really little. They were like these big, thick cardboard books that looked like a book, but they were made of cardboard, super pretty covers, and you opened it up, and on both sides, it had like Lifesavers are candies that come in like a cylindrical roll, like foil with a colorful wrapper, and each one is like a circle with a hole in the middle. And the story is that they're called Lifesavers because if they go down your throat, you can still breathe through the hole. I don't think that I've heard that that's not true, but they're called Lifesavers. Also because they look like a raft, right, that you throw to someone when they're drowning. But these books, you would open them, and on both sides, they would have rows of these Lifesaver packs, right? So, and often like different flavors. So it would be like 6 or 8 packs, something like that. Wasn't it crazy? Maybe even more. You would open this thing, it would be like, oh God, I forgot about that. And just the way that the Lifesaver books looked was insane. It was over the top pretty. Great packaging. I wonder if though, stop it, you saw them at Walmart today? Did you? I'm gonna have to get them for my kids. That is fantastic. So Juliet, I don't know, could be. Pretzel could be German symbolism for sure. Love the Santa in the sleigh. I love all of these. I just they're such pretty images, and they evoke this earlier time, but also great childhood memories. I just love all of them. So this is, and they're going out of their way here because you see the American flag. So this is definitely very fancy sleigh. I don't know how it's going to do the job for all of the kids in the entire world, but we have to trust. Now this image I really like. This was really. Sorry, I'm sniffling and being gross. I am so sorry. See, doing that little bit of singing activated my throat again. Hold on one second while I take a sip. Black rum is helping out. So I love this image because you do get a lot of images of Santa inside, right? And some people don't like that just because they're like, ooh, how creepy, Santa's inside. Of course he's inside. He's delivering gifts. But you don't often see an image like this, where the little girl is praying and maybe saying, gosh, tomorrow morning I hope I get this. And Santa's there listening. He's not very well hidden behind the bedpost. But I think the idea is just so charming. He's got a sack full of stuff. He wants to be sure that he gives her what she really wants. And there she is. Like, and maybe this is a bit sacrilegious, but there she is praying for a specific toy. And I mean, maybe this doesn't resonate with you, but for me it does. And it really reminds me of, here's another recommendation for you for after the show. I know I said this in past Christmases, and I'm not going to sing it because I don't have the tune, and I'm also just struggling with voice tonight. But have you ever heard the beautiful song called Scarlet Ribbons? It was first sung, I think, what is it, 1950? I didn't write it down. I think it's 1956 or something. No, 1949. By Joe Stafford, one of my favorite singers, right after June Christie. I love Joan Stafford and Julie London. So Joan Stafford records Scarlet Ribbons first in 1949, and Harry Belafonte, as a very young man, records it, I think, in 1960. No, 1950. So the next year. So it was originally released by Joe Stafford in 49, and then the next year by Harry Belafonte. I listened to both today, multiple times on YouTube. This is such a beautiful, haunting song. It's not a Christmas song, but I absolutely love it. And I'm gonna put up I'm not gonna sing it, right? Maybe another time when I feel more confident about my voice. But it's an absolutely beautiful song. Let me show you the image again. And I'm going to read you the text of the song, and I hope that you pull up Scarlet Ribbons. Pull up pull up either, but definitely listen to the Harry Belafonte one. So this is the lyric to the song. It says, I peeked in to say goodnight, then I heard my child in prayer. And for me some scarlet ribbons for my hair. Next verse, all our stores were closed and shuttered, all the streets were dark and bare, in our town no scarlet ribbons, not one ribbon for her hair. Through the night my heart was aching, just before the dawn was breaking, I peeked in and on her bed, in gay profusion lying there, lovely ribbons, scarlet ribbons for her hair. This is my favorite verse. If I live to be 100, I will never know from where came those lovely scarlet ribbons for her hair. That one chokes me up. That is it's just such a beautiful, it's a very haunting song. And this postcard really, it has a bit of a religious undertone, right? Like it's like some kind of a miracle. But it's just so beautiful. And when I saw this image of Santa listening like that, I was thinking, I mean, it brought me right to that song. Absolutely beautiful. Pam, I do need a butter rum lifesaver. I love butter rum. Everything. Do they make a whole? Okay, they're at CVS. I have CVS and Rite Aid. Oh, I'm getting them. I'm going to stock up on. I don't think my kids have ever even seen that. Shame on me. Oh, only at Christmas now. Well, that's okay if it's almost at Christmas, right? Because it's like you don't want to eat them all year round, right? There's so many good candies for all year round, but I definitely need them for Christmas, and hopefully they are marketed in such a way that they will be really festive. Now we are going to Germany next for weird traditions, right? You probably have heard of this character. This is a really nasty character called Krampus. Krampus. Most people these days know Krampus because he has entered into American sort of celebration folklore, and I think a bit ironically because he's so awful. So, Gruß von Krampus. This is the greetings from the Krampus. So, in this image, and these are also in the ribbon candy hooking store, if you like weird traditions, you might want to hook one of these, right? Nothing wrong with that. I might want to hook one of these. He is a devil character. He's believed to have originated in Germany, and his name derives from the German word Krampen, which means claw. Krampus was thought to have been part of pagan rituals for the winter solstice. According to legend, he is the son of Hel, Hel, right? The person, not the place, who is the Norse god of the underworld. So, what Krampus does is he comes for bad children. And just like Sinterklaas's Pete's, in the case of the Dutch Pete's, when they locate a bad child, like on the naughty list, they kidnap them and take them back to Turkey in a sack. So that's the same kind of storyline that's happening here with Krampus. Krampus has the additional sort of grotesque quality of having this disgusting tongue. So it is like part kind of goat figure. Sometimes he's pictured as all red, like fires of hell kind of connotation. Sometimes he's all black, like a wild half animal, half human figure. But he always has this disgusting tongue. And here he's got baskets of fruits, right, for good kids, and a switch, right, to beat you with if you're bad, and chains to haul you off with if you're that bad. So this is one of these Christmas traditions that has been around for hundreds of years. It's not one that we have traditionally gone to in the U.S., but it's one that exists. And if this strikes you as humorous and quirky, there's a lot of great Krampus imagery. So I have these 3 images at Ribbon Candy Hooking. I really like them, but I do like a little bit of horror and a little bit of the grotesque in an old-fashioned way. But it is nasty, Karen. It definitely is. It's not for everyone. Barbara, good to see you. It's definitely not for everyone. But this is one of the German traditions, and you will hear more and more about Krampus, I'm sure, as our lives go forward, as we share traditions and cross over, right? This is a more benign and pretty tradition. This is a Ukraine tradition, and it is using a Christmas cobweb on the tree. So the cobweb signifies good luck, doesn't it? So with Ukrainian trees, there are a lot of people who will make a lace or a crocheted or a beaded cobweb to be an ornament for the tree or the theme of the tree. It is grotesque, Linda. The Krampus is just awful. Up until I think 2 years, maybe it was COVID. We used to go, me and my mom, I'm sure I told you about this, and my sister, to the Fall River Historical Society, where they would every year bring us through this beautiful historic house. And in every room, there was tea. There was tea next door, a high tea, where you'd get like this little tiered server with like cut up sandwiches with the crusts off with cucumbers and all that stuff, and then like little petit four cakes and things. And then you'd go on this Christmas tour in this beautiful historic house, and the whole house, every room had a different tree in it with a different theme, and it was different every year. But when we were going, we went maybe 3 or 4 times, I think, before COVID. I feel like we've been since, but not this year anyway. They didn't do it, I don't think, this year. But I remember when we went, the last couple of times, there was a Krampus tree every time. And they said, it's backed by popular demand. Like, they one year they had an upside down tree that was like a feat of gravity, right? They had it strung from the ceiling with the base up, and it came down like a pencil point, and all the ornaments were strung as such. But really creative, and some of them were like ballet themed or Nutcracker themed or whatever. And then the Krampus tree that was all Krampus ornaments, all red fire stuff. And they said, people want to see this tree. This is one tree that people want to see every year. So we don't switch out the Krampus tree because he's like so popular. And I like him too. But I just thought interesting because when I was growing up, I never heard the word Krampus in my life, right? Because it doesn't sound like it would be a good thing, does it? Sue says, now I know why my ancestors sailed the sea to the U.S. Totally, right? Oh man, getting carried away in chains. I mean, that's really, sometimes I threaten my kids as I should not with things that I don't plan to do, which I should not, and I truly am trying to stop. But Teddy really was zinging his sister yesterday, and I said, don't make me go into the closet, but I didn't say closet, the place, and like take any of those Christmas presents I have for you and put them in the Toys for Tots box. I don't know why I say things like that. It's like the worst thing in the world to threaten things that you have absolutely no intention of doing. I'm looking for more gifts for him. And I apologized to him afterward, as I always do, because he's my little love. But I thought, man, like that compared to being taken away in chains, put into a sack, and taken to like a distant country, like forever, to be someone's slave, like that's real specific. That's rough. It's much rougher. Something for everyone. That's it, Linda. So I like the idea of the spider webs. I think this is quite beautiful. They try to make the webs like in a natural formation, and they try to make it look like there's like a little bit of glistening dew on them. And the idea of these webs is derived from a legend. And the legend is, let me show you another image. Oh, so that's the image I have in the ribbon candy hooking store. This I put out at Halloween. It's called Halloween Web. And now I'm looking at this image for myself again as a hit or miss pattern and thinking, I might want to hook this as a Christmas image, like the web on the tree, right, with like forest green in the background, maybe some whites, maybe a little bit of hit or miss. But I do have a web. I do have a web. If you love the idea of the spider web, that is there. This is another example of a spider web ornament on a Ukrainian tree. The legend is that there was a poor woman who was too poor to decorate her tree for her children. So spiders took pity on her, and they dressed her tree in webs overnight. And spider webs are considered lucky in the Ukraine, as they are in the UK, in a lot of places in Victorian lore. They are considered lucky. But I think this is just one of these absolutely beautiful stories. Beautiful stories. Kind of like a Cinderella story about the mice working overnight, or the little elves helping the cobbler, right? This is a different tradition. Kaz, you're gonna have to tell me if this rings a bell with you. I've heard about this, and I hadn't researched it until today. In Japan, Colonel Santa, right? This is a KFC tradition. This is for real. Since 1974, in Japan, KFC released a festive marketing campaign called Kentucky for Christmas. And this spawned a national tradition that is still apparently very popular today. Christmas is not a holiday in Japan, but people still buy a Christmas Eve meal from KFC. It costs around $20. And from another source, I read that in Tokyo, Japan, December 23rd, a statue of Colonel Sanders. Now, it's not this one. Wait a minute. Oh, no, maybe it is that one. Hold on just a second. Let me make sure I don't have. Close your eyes. Nope, I only have the one. A statue of Colonel Sanders in a Santa outfit, this must be it, is pictured December 23rd in Tokyo. KFC has become something of a tradition in Japan, with some attributing its Yuletide popularity to a kindergarten delivery being made in a Santa Claus costume, which was such a success it was requested by a number of other schools, and subsequently gave the company the idea of associating its product to Christmas. The chain launched its first Christmas campaign in December of 1974 and has continued to do so every year at all of its outlets nationwide throughout Japan. In 2018, KFC Japan posted its all-time high sales of roughly 68 million US dollars for the 5 days between December 21st and 25th, roughly 10% of its annual revenue. That's crazy. So this is a tradition. This really is a thing. Cass says, you had to order in November to get your food at KFC for Christmas. Really? Wow. People are serious. It's like putting in an order for pumpkin pie and pecan pie. Melanie says, I must be the luckiest woman in the world. Every time I look around, I find more spider webs, cobwebs. Spiders are working overtime. It's a gift. It's a gift. And you know, it's funny when I read that because last night I was at my sister's house. She was dyeing my roots, and she was dyeing the tips of Teddy's hair so we can make it really purple. And I went into one of her spare rooms, and I saw a painting of hers because she's an art restorer at Yale. She collects a lot of beautiful pieces, and this piece has some damage, but it is a massive, massive painting. I think it's from England. I don't know how she got it here. It needs a little work, but it's a painting that I think came out of a paint store, like a fine art paint store, and it's about painting cobwebs. Like, I don't know if it's a real thing, and she doesn't either, and I haven't thought to research it. But the whole thing is about, it shows an artist from like a rear view painting on cobwebs. And I thought, is this a thing or is it a joke? Because it's an old thing. It's probably an early 20th century thing. It's not newer than that. And I thought, interesting if painting of cobwebs ever was a thing. Cindy says there is a song, Kentucky Fried Christmas, sung by Ann Wilson. I don't know that song. I'm going to have to check that out. I'm going to put that on my list. If somebody can send me the name of that to Facebook or something so I can check it after the show, I would love to hear that song. Interesting, isn't it? So then we come to, okay, wait a minute. I don't have an image for this, but I can show you. Hang on. I was doing weird traditions here, and a huge shout out to Jane in Wales. Thank you so much for helping me with, more than helping me with this episode. She sent me a huge document of like 60 pages with weird traditions and things I could pull from so that I could do this episode in a day and not like over a week, because these episodes do take a lot of time to put together. It's a good time to say thank you if you are a Patreon member. Every time I put together a show, it is the whole day, a huge part of the day, or sometimes more than one day. So those of you who support me and the brand through Patreon, and the link hopefully is in the whatever video in the description, a huge shout out and thank you for that, because I got nothing done today. Jacob did. He got some orders done, but I was working on this all day, so thank you so much. I was looking at Jane's document, and we were talking about weird traditions and stuff. So another tradition from Germany, also weird, but not as nasty as the Krampus, is a pickle in the tree. So the idea is that a pickle is hidden in the Christmas tree, and the first child to find it is given a gift. It's also a popular American tradition, apparently. I didn't know this. Growing up, we did not have pickles in the tree. Unknown where the tradition originated from, it may have originated from Spain. 2 boys imprisoned in a pickle barrel and rescued by Saint Nick. I've heard that story too in the autobiography that's in there. And in St. Nicholas, actually, they've drowned in the pickle barrel, and he brings them back to life. His healing powers too. So, but though it's mistakenly believed to be an old German tradition, no one seems to know how the Christmas pickle tradition started. One myth involves a Civil War soldier of Bavarian origin who's been imprisoned by the enemy. He begged the guard for one last pickle before he died, and it gave him the will to carry on. The truth is that the legend was most likely started by retailers selling glass ornaments imported from Germany. The town of Berrien Springs, Michigan holds a pickle festival every year in December. Does anybody know about that? That sounds like something I would definitely want to go. That sounds amazing. That is so cute. And you know, I don't have an image of a pickle. I'm going to leave that alone because, right, there's lots of, it's like a minefield right there. But you know what I do have? Excuse me while I stand up on the couch. I do have a pickle on the tree. I always have a little pickle on the tree. And I don't know why. Sorry about that. I hope you didn't see anything you weren't supposed to see. But, yeah, I have my little pickle on. Oh, you know what? I think that's the banana. I do have a pickle. It's not on the tree. I mustn't have found that box this year. Yeah, no, I think that's a banana. Well, I do have a pickle. You know what I mean. It looks like this from a distance, but it's green and it has dimples on it. So there we go. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? So I like the pickle tradition too. Oh, Cass says someone gave me a pickle ornament. I knew about this tradition because of it. Yeah, I think that's how you would know, because it's not right there, is it? It's not It's not the low-hanging fruit. It's not known by everybody, is what I mean. Juliet says, my mom calls cobwebs Irish lace. She grew up in Ireland. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, I love that. That is so beautiful. Irish lace. Oh, I love that. It's giving me ideas for patterns now. Part of the series. I love that. Here's another tradition. This is an Italian tradition that I also really love. And I got this information from a website called grandvoyageitaly.com. And have you heard of La Befana, who is an Italian witch, who's a Christmas witch? She comes at Christmas. This is a big part of the folklore in Italy. So I'm peeling some of this from this website, right? grandvoyageitaly.com. La Befana, the Christmas witch Italian children love. Wrinkled skin, warts, black shawl, flying broomstick. Sounds scary, right? Such a witch on a flying broom would strike fear into the hearts of most children, but not in Italy and not on Epiphany, January 6th, right? So this is a little bit after Christmas. So this is Epiphany. This witch, La Befana, comes down chimneys and leaves gifts for children. And if they've been bad, she'll leave a lump of black coal, right? We hear that from Santa too, right? But she's usually compelled to leave a black sugar lump rather than real coal. She's that good. Since the 13th century, La Befana has been leaving presents in children's stockings, but her story goes back much further than that. La Befana was stopped by the three wise men and asked her to lead them to the manger and stable where the baby Jesus was born. La Befana was so nasty, and she shoved them away without helping them. But seeing the Christmas star in the sky, she was drawn to find the reason for their quest and brought her own gifts to the baby Jesus. Although she followed the star, she wandered without finding him. To this day, she flies around the world in search of that special child. And just in case she misses him, she leaves gifts for every other child to make up for her past indiscretion. That really is lovely, isn't it? In just about every town in Italy, there will be celebrations, feasts, parades, marching bands, flying witches, floating witches, puppet witches, witches on brooms, black cats everywhere. On January 6th, children will find in their stockings presents and also discover that all too suddenly, at least to an Italian child, the Christmas season comes to a close. Well, it is protracted, isn't it? If you have Christmas and then you go right through January 6th, like that's a good long run, isn't it? Some slices of sweet panettone are a cup of hot chocolate. I'm not going to try to say it in Italian. And playing a few rounds of tombola with the familia after playing with their new toys in this magical Natale season tucks gently into their lifelong memories. And that was written on that website by Jerry Finzi. That really is so beautiful, isn't it? I just love the idea of this Christmas witch who made a mistake, right? And then she spends the rest of her life, which sounds like eternity, making up for it by giving gifts to other children, just to be sure she doesn't miss this special child again. I think that is so beautiful. And I had not heard of this character, and I have spent a lot of time in Italy too. Have not heard of this character. Maybe it's not national, maybe it's more regional. Hang on while I look for where we're at. Oh, that's not good. Hang on. Okay. I got to try to figure out where we left off. Sorry about that. Getting warm. Here we go. So this is actually from that website, and this is a painting by Laura Tempest Zakroff. And this is one version of what she looks like. So she does look like a witch. She does ride a broom. She does have a black cat. She does have a black pointed hat. But the thing that struck me is, at least with the images that I was looking at of Befana, she doesn't have to be entirely in black. So it seems like the ugliness is important. The black hat is important. A similar costume, but it doesn't have to be solid black. And that gave me some ideas. So this may be, well, this looks like the Grand Canal in Venice. Here come a bunch of Befanas riding along, or maybe someplace with canals anyway, just showing the amount of color with black that can be represented with this image. This is another painting on the site. It's on the Grand Voyage site that I just read from. It is signed in the corner, but they don't make note of it. So if you're interested in this image, maybe just pull this up larger on your screen. I couldn't make it out with my eyeballs, but it is signed, so hopefully that is helpful. So this is more like a crone character, isn't it? Without the hat, but with the head shawl. She's actively delivering gifts here, very much in the style of Santa Claus. I thought this was really interesting stuff. And souvenir witches being sold like crazy. No, Karen, you're right. Not all pickles have dimples. The one I have, the ornament does. And that's how it's like a big kosher dill pickle. I love it. And now I'm wondering where it is. But you see a lot of this kind of souvenir stuff apparently in Italy because this is a big deal. And thinking about there being a Christmas witch reminded me that I had done a ton of Halloween witches, and one of them I didn't get to, and I don't even know if I showed it to you. But I'm super interested in it now, thinking about Belfana and thinking about adapting the pattern I'm about to show you. It's called The Witch in the Wardrobe, no lion. Because I like the idea. Let me show you the image. I like the idea that she doesn't have to be all in black. Oh, the kitchen witches is also a German thing. I feel like I know that just because of my German brother-in-law. He brings lots of crazy with him, always. This is the image I was talking about that I didn't get to this year. And I drew this for Halloween, and it's called The Witch in the Wardrobe. This is at Ribbon Candy Hooking. But I'm really tempted to tweak this for myself into a Belfana because I like the idea that she wears the black hat and that she is a witch and she has that kind of nose and everything. But I like the idea that she could also be wearing a colorful dress. So interesting. And Juliet's saying witches are good luck, like the kitchen witch is good luck. Kitchen witch. Isn't that funny? I wonder if that's the predecessor to the elf on the shelf and all of the characters that are predecessors now to him. That is way past my time. So it's like, it seems so weird to me that you'd be looking at a doll of an elf, but I know it's a big thing right now. My kids would not go for that. I just know it. It would be ridiculed. But I do love this image, and I'm thinking about returning to it with some really kind of fashionista Italian clothing for Belfana. So this might be something I come to over the holidays. Mistletoe. So we were talking more specifically about holly. I might have to do something specifically on holly. I was thinking about mistletoe and berries and this kind of thing. This image, I just shipped this image this morning. Gosh, was it Kathleen? I forget who bought 4. Oh, God, Linda. Linda bought 4 of these. Linda buys a lot of the vintage patterns. A huge thank you to Linda. Really appreciate the business. This is a beautiful image that just went out. I just love this one of the little gnomes, the little sort of Christmassy gnomes, painting holly and berries. Holly berries. I think this is just absolutely adorable. Mistletoe was held sacred by the Norse, the Celtic Druids, the Native American Indians, because it remains green and bears fruit during the winter when other plants die. Druids thought the plant had the power to cure infertility, nervous diseases, and to ward off evil. So interesting. So this kind of evergreen idea with the berries, and you know, if you live around New England, I mean, all I see right now are these ghostly trees with nothing on them except holly leaves and these incredibly bright berries, and it is exciting, I think, to see it. They just look like such a wild spray against an otherwise, particularly when there's snow on the ground, really, really dull-looking landscape. Really beautiful. So that's mistletoe. So that image is in the shop. This one also is. This is such a nice contained image, isn't it? And this is another one that says on the front, from Amelia. Because if Amelia wrote it on the back, she'd be charged a ton. But she writes it on the front, so she just gets charged for postage. So I like this image too. We talked a little bit about stripies when we were looking at the Atha magazine. We'll pick that up again on Monday and finish looking at that current issue of Atha. But we talked about Christmas stripies and how it looks a little bit like a candy box. Very restrained image. I get basketed out and bouqueted out in this business, but this one really speaks to me because I love the stripes. And it's a bowl of like holly and berries, or mistletoe and berries. I think it's all 3. But really, really charming image for a wall, for a floor. I really like it. I really like it. Another funny tradition. So I had to draw this because I didn't have any great examples of this. There's a tradition, an Icelandic tradition called the Yule cat. Let me tell you about it first because I just drew that image today. I could not live without a Yule cat pattern being available for tonight's show. I went nuts. I'd never heard of the Yule cat before. I mean, this is also crazy. So a giant cat is said to roam the snowy countryside at Christmas time. This probably goes back to the Dark Ages. This monstrous feline is taller than a house, right? He's enormous. And parents and farmers would use the Yule cat as incentive to encourage their children to finish chores. Um, those who worked hard would receive a new set of clothes, which would be something you would want in these days. But those who didn't were devoured by this large cat. So there's another spin on this too, right? And the Dutch spin, because this is also known in the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, the story is more like, if you are given clothing for Christmas, which really no child wants, and you don't wear your new clothing on Christmas Day, this giant cat will come and kill you. So a little bit of a shift in storytelling there, but still, right? This is a scary, dark character, but I thought it's an interesting tradition, Icelandic, one I had not heard about before. So I just put I think I just called it the Yule cat, and I put a couple of little houses to give it scale, and a few little lollipop trees with snow. And my idea for this, when I get to it, is to be able to put snow on the ground, put snow on the caps of the trees, and do a night sky, because he kind of roams at night, right? Karen says, holly only get their points if they get nibbled on critters like deer. Otherwise, holly leaves are smooth. And Melanie says, my grandmother's holly tree had spiked leaves, and the false holly we had spiked leaves. I remember also when I lived in New York, we lived in Mahopac, New York, we had somebody had planted a lot of holly trees in front of the house, and I met the woman who did it, right, who lived there before us. She was an artist. She'd done a lot of cool stuff in the house, but she said they were there because she didn't want anything eating them. Like, she wanted them to stay, and she said the deer won't touch them because they're so sharp. So right through the year, and at Christmas, it was always nice when it snowed to see those holly trees with the berries. Right, we had like a rotary thing, for a driveway in front of the house, and I loved seeing that. My holly is spiked, no critters. Yeah, I guess that is part of the practicality and charm of it, right, is that it is spiked. Now, I think this might be the last tradition of the night before I log off, so I did good timing tonight. There's a Yule cat, and guess what? There's also a Yule goat in Sweden. The Yule goat in Sweden, of the things that we talked about tonight, is probably the oldest still celebrated tradition. It dates back to the 11th century, right? So this is the Yule goat of Sweden. I put a few images into ribbon candy hooking if you are into this one. So this is a tricky one. It dates back to the 11th century or possibly earlier. The original idea was that the Yule goat was a man-sized goat figure led by Saint Nicholas. So Saint Nicholas would take the Yule goat around with him on his rounds because the goat had the power to repel and control the devil. So he was like, he was an effective character to have by your side, because he could ward off the devil. So the idea of the Yule goat changes over the years. When we go like a few hundred years forward, more toward like the Renaissance period, it becomes popular for young men at Christmas to dress as a goat, right? A little bit of fertility connotation there, but to dress as a goat and to beg for presents. So you're dressed up as a man goat, like the original Yule goat, and you ask people for presents, and maybe they give them to you. So this is something, like all holidays, it morphs over the centuries, right? And at this point, it sounds like, from what I read, it was more like the goat is a symbol, right, of the Yule goat. And in lots of squares and city centers, you see a giant statue, a big green goat that's all decorated with lights and ribbons, very common, and also ornaments on trees, just like the pickle, just like the cobwebs of the Yule goat, right? So great symbol of Sweden. And so I have this image of the Yule goat. I found a few that I really liked. Good Yule, so, direct reference to the Yuletide, but in Swedish. And beautiful, beautiful images, right? So I thought, and we're seeing different versions of goats and different ones. So I thought this is interesting for rug hookers who like wool and fiber and stuff. This is just interesting. I thought these images were super interesting. So those are the images I have for tonight. We're going to return to the subject next week on Wednesday. I just wanted to project forward and show you two more images that I am working on now. So I'm going to conclude that part of the episode, and I have a little more content, but I want to remind you on Monday we're going to complete the ATHA magazine. We're going to finish looking at that. And on Wednesday I'm going to do another traditions episode, right? And I'll see how many I can get in before Christmas. Next Friday night is gallery night, so let's talk about that in a minute. But I just wanted to share stuff that I'm working on now too, because I gave you the foreshadowing at the beginning of the episode that there is another gallery opportunity. Whether or not you're doing Van Gogh in January, I hope you are, but there is another gallery opportunity to submit a piece that I will certainly hang in Hartford at the Charter Oak Cultural Center, which is a big deal. It's a nice gallery. So our own rug show, full scale, full blast. So I was working on storytelling rugs, and I just want to show you what I'm working on because we have two things coming out now. Jacob is here. He's working with me. He's helping me. He's a super creative, artistic powerhouse. He was working today on a design that will come out soon because the Chinese New Year, I think, is the end of January. He was working on this drawing today. So this is his drawing, and we are evolving this so that this will be out before Christmas, but it really is intended for January. And in February, we will be talking about Chinese folklore, storytelling, fairy tales, images, and all of that stuff in design. In January, we were talking about Celtic everything. So for the coming year, 2023, each month we're talking about a different country in the world. I think we probably won't do the U.S. this year because we hope in 2024 to do the different regions of the U.S. for the entire year. But for this coming year, for every month, we want to put out patterns that relate to different cultures, different people, different beliefs, different design aesthetics. So it gives us like a skeleton to work with, looking at all kinds of art, right? So Celtic in January, and then we'll release the dragon before Chinese New Year. In case you want to hook the dragon, we're still evolving it and working on the border, but that's the drawing he did today. I was really, really excited by it. And my dumpster fire is on the website starting this afternoon. So I did it like this, and I'm leaving it like this. And does it look like a sketch? It totally does. And this is how I'm leaving it. I'm planning to hook it quite large. When everything's dark as a soot in the city, your firelight can glow so surprisingly pretty. And I put some bones around the edge. This is another one of Jacob's ideas that I latched onto. On the dog side, there's like bones, like drumsticks. And on the cat side, there's like fish skeletons. And I changed out, I had DF for dumpster fire. He's like, why don't you put RCH for ribbon candy hooking? Brilliant. So I changed that out. And I'm going to be hooking this like in the next week. I'm going to pick this up and start hooking it. And I honestly cannot wait. It's going to be a night scene. And I'm deciding if I want to have snow like on the chain link fence and stuff. But I absolutely love this pattern. And I know some of you wrote about the dumpster fire because maybe you also feel like a little bit of a dumpster fire. You are in good company, I hope. I think a lot of us feel like dumpster fires this time of year. This made me feel better to draw it, and it's going to make me feel great to hook it. So that's available. If you are asking for it, it's there. Feel free, hook it along with me. I will love having the company, the good company, hooking the dumpster fire. So that's what's happening here. I think I have you updated on everything. Just one more reminder that next Friday night is gallery night. So if you have things that you would like to send, things you're working on, ideas, sketches, anything, you should send them. You should send them because we will love. I want to be sure that this is showing at the end of the show. I'm getting festive here. Make sure that you send them. And don't second guess yourself. You can't imagine how many emails I get that start with the line, I can't believe I was brave enough to send this. Just be brave. Do it. Like Nike. Just do it. Just do it. And we will love seeing your work. We love you and we will love your work. And it's going to be great, right? It's going to be great. So go ahead and send it. Send your stuff for gallery night. I will love seeing it. And next Friday night is gallery night. It is right before Christmas. It's the day before Christmas. So I'll already be at my mom's house with the kids and the family. But I am running gallery night. We're going to have a great time. In the meantime, Monday, our ATHA catch-up. Wednesday, we continue our holiday traditions. We're going to move toward Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, different traditions, right? More traditions, moving away more from Europe and other places. So I will see you hopefully 3 times this coming week for Coffee Time, Cocktail Time episodes. And the next one, if you're a new viewer, will be Monday at noon Eastern Standard Time for the continuation of ATHA. In the meantime, have a great weekend. Work on your projects if you have time. Send me as much as you can. keep things going, right? Keep me informed and get those images into me for gallery night. Try to get them in before Friday if you can. And if you can't because you're working on stuff or you forget about it or you see the show late, I will do my best on Friday to be caught up and to get all of those last minute images into, because I want your stuff in there. It means a lot to me to know that if you sent me something that I'm able to get it into the show. Happy weekend, everybody. It was great spending time with you on a Friday. I love talking about traditions. Andrea, I can't believe you've been up this whole time. You naughty, naughty girl. I'm glad you were. I will see you all on Monday for